Bars is back. Sam and oh God, what's up with you? Hip Hop Uncensored is the vibe, so subscribe. Hip Hop Uncensored is the vibe, so subscribe. Oh God, driving Sam and riding passenger side, and you heard it out the mouth of the greatest rapper alive.
Interested in promoting your brand, business, or talent on Hip Hop News Uncensored? Hit me up right now at advertise@hiphopun.com. That's advertise@hiphopun.com. Hit me ASAP. Very affordable rates. Now to our regularly scheduled program. Let's get
man. Yeah.
When did you, Mike, realize that the business side was just as important as the music side of the game? Because a lot of people in South Jersey, with the abundance of talent that we have, that was one thing that I could say across the board was almost lacking in all of the talented people was the business side.
Right,
we either didn't have the right people in our corner, or we just didn't know any better. We thought the music could carry us and got into bullshit contracts. We all know the story.
Right.
What made you realize early that the business side was just as important as the music?
Well, once I realized, realizing about the business was, to be honest, when I signed with Rodney Jerkins. You know what I mean? That was an interesting experience, you know what I mean? But that experience didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, and that was the first time that I realized that, man, this business ain't all what it's cracked up to be or what I thought it was going to be, you know what I mean? Because you looking on TV, you looking in the Right On magazines, the Source magazines, and you think everybody's just, you know what I'm saying, 100, but it's really not like that, you know what I mean? So that was my first time experiencing like the business not being what I expected it to be.
Let me ask you this. Oh God, my fault. Let me ask you this though, because I watched your career as a young bull. Congratulated you, cheered you on as I got into the game and started really planting my feet in here as a South Jersey artist. And it seemed like it came to a point where you were the hottest thing out in Jersey. You were right here.
Yeah. Got
with Rodney, and then things got quiet. And things got a little bit too quiet to where we're like, what happened to Mike Nitty?
Exactly.
Well, what happened to Mike Nitty to where we thought that he was going to be the shining star to where we don't hear about him anymore? And that's no disrespect to you, brother, but while you're here, we got to ask you, you know what I'm saying?
Truth. Yeah.
So what happened when things just kind of got quiet for you and got a little too quiet and kind of shut down almost?
Right. So what happened was, I'm going to take you guys back. I was doing, like I said, I was doing the mixtapes and everything. And it's a guy named Amin. And he was a keyboard player. I forgot Amin's last name, man. But shout out to Amin. And he was a keyboard player at Rodney Jerkins' church.
Okay.
And I was doing one of my mixtapes, and he came over to play some keys on one of my mixtapes. And I finally finished the mixtape, and he was like, "Oh man!" He came over to hear like the finished product after it was all like mixed and everything. And he was like, "Man, this sound hot." Yo, I know a guy named Rodney Jerkins, man, that I play at his church sometime or whatever like that. And he's doing this thing. And at the time, Rodney Jerkins had a song out on the Black Panther soundtrack, the movie that came out back in the day about the Black Panthers. And it was a guy named Hodge that I went to high school with. Shout out to L. Hodge. He went to high school with me, and he was with Rodney at the time. And they had a song out called Head Nod that was on the Black Panther soundtrack. So I was familiar with him from that because I knew Hodge. I went to high school with him, and Hodge was from Uptown and everything. And I'm from the village, and Uptown and the village, they didn't really get along too much. But me and Hodge was in some of the same classes, so we never paid that no mind. We just had mega love for each other and brotherhood and the music and everything like that. So when Amin told me, yeah, man, look, we need to make a copy, and I'm going to send it to Rodney Jerkins, and we're gonna see what happens from there. You know what I mean? So he actually had Rodney's dad number. So he calls Rodney dad. I'm right there. I was living in Venice Park at this time. Shout out to everybody in Venice Park. I was living over the Second Bridge. And he called Rodney's dad and said, listen, I got a guy named Mike Nitty. He's hot. He got a demo, and I want to send it to you guys. So Rodney's dad gave him the address and everything. And like I said, this is before like the internet was really big or whatever like that. We went and got envelopes and everything, and put the tape in the thing, wrote the address on there, and went and dropped it in the mailbox right in Venice Park. Dropped it in the mailbox, and I say about like 2 days later, it wasn't long. It was 2 days later. Rodney Jerkins' dad called me, the Reverend. He called me and was like, "Yeah, can you come out to they was living in Pomona at the time. He was like, yeah, can you come out to Pomona, whatever? We liked your, Rodney likes your demo. You know, can you come out to Pomona and, you know, we want to sign you. So I'm like, okay. So shout out to my man, George Irby. You know, I didn't have a car at the time. You know what I mean? I didn't have a car at the time. So he was my older brother from the first village or whatever. So he drove me out there and I sat down with Rodney's dad. Rodney wasn't there at the time. It was just Rodney's dad. And I sat down with him. He was like, yeah, Rodney likes your music or whatever like that. You know, we on the rise and blah, blah, blah. We want to, you know, we want to sign you to our production company, Darkchild Productions. So I was like, all right, you know what I mean? So they gave me a contract and they gave me a contract. I took it home. I let, you know, my peoples look at it and everything was everything. I wound up signing. And then once I signed, that's when I got to meet Rodney and we immediately got in. The first time I got to meet him, he was working on Gina Thompson's album. She was on Mercury Records at the time, right? Okay. So he said, hey, you know, the contract signed, you in now, come to New York to Quad Studios. For those that don't know, that's where Tupac got shot. So he like, yeah, come to Quad Studios. So I'm young. I'm like 16, about to be 17. I get on the Greyhound bus right at the Lang City bus station. I got on the bus and I went to New York by myself. And you know, they gave me the address. I went to Quad Studios. I went in there, and that's when I first met Rodney Jerkins. He was in there working on Gina Thompson's album, and Gina Thompson was there, and it was a couple other people there and everything like that. We started gelling, talking. I was telling him my story and stuff like that. He was telling me how much he liked the tape and everything. So at the beginning, I didn't record nothing right away. I guess he just wanted to hang out with me, vibe, and, you know, see what's up or whatever like that. So I'm hanging out with him or whatever. We wound up staying in New York for a couple of days. And Gina Thompson did a song called The Things You Do. Mm-hmm. And Puff Daddy had produced it or whatever like that. So boom, that wound up coming out and it was getting hot. The label told Rodney, hey man, we need a remix. You know what I mean? We need a remix for this. This song is blazing. We need a remix. So Rodney was like, all right. And he tapped me, said, yo, this is where we're going to bring you in. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And at the time, Craig Mack was on fire. He had Flavor in Your Ear, Raekwon, Wu-Tang, you know what I mean? So boom. We go back to New York and Rodney's working on a remix. I hear the beat and everything. I'm in the studio. I lay my verse down first. You know what I mean? While we waiting for Craig Mack and Raekwon coming through the studio. Shout out to Mr. C. He was in the studio. And a couple reps from Mercury Records and everything like that. So I laid down my verse and everybody in the studio, Mr. C. all of them was like, oh my God, this little guy's on fire. Who is this little guy? And my biggest thing was I just wanted to rep my neighborhood and rep my city. So, you know what I mean? That's when I got on there and said, Mr. Mike Nitty, get down like that. AC, SHV, you can find me at. And man, it was history from there, man. I'm in the studio. I laid down my verse. And mind you, we got the studio early in the afternoon, and the studio session was all day. We had the studio booked out all day just to do this one remix. Next thing you know, Craig Mack walk in the studio. Man, God bless. Rest in peace to Craig Mack, man. Good brother, like in real life. You know what I mean? I would never forget that. Now, mind you, he's the biggest thing on the planet. Flavor in Your Ear, Puff Daddy, everything. Right. So I'm in there like, man, then Craig Mack walks in. I'm fresh off the streets, you know what I'm saying? So I'm fresh out the village, like watching these guys on TV. So Craig Mack walks in the studio. The thing I remember about Craig Mack, how loud he was. He was just, And Rodney was just on the come up. He wasn't like a big producer like Puff Daddy and all that yet. So he was kind of still on the rise. And I just remember Craig Mack kept messing up Rodney's name. Like, yeah, Rodney Jerkins, he kept calling him Rodney Jerkins. Yeah, bring the beat back or whatever. So Craig Mack is writing his verse or whatever like that. And then, you know what I'm saying, they was playing it back. And I was like, damn, I'm on a song with Craig Mack. You know what I mean? And then next thing you know, I say about 2 hours later, Raekwon walks in. Now, Craig Mack was my man. You know, I like the Craig Mack. Everybody, Flavor in Your Ear was lit. But Raekwon, I'm from the streets. Chef. So the chef walked in. I'm like, yo, it's really real right now. You know what I mean? I'm in here with the chef. Mind you, I'm young. I'm impressionable. I'm you know what I mean? These are guys I'm listening to with my brothers back in the neighborhood and stuff like that. So the chef walked in. I'm like, yo. So the chef like, yeah, let me hear the track. You know what I mean? Just come in, swag up, mad cool, like boom. And the track play, I'll never forget the track play. So he had Craig Mack. He like, the chef just sitting back on a chair like this. He got the yellow, the yellow legal pad.
Yeah.
He got that with the pen. He didn't write that yet. He just was hearing it. He was like, And then when my verse came on, I'm sitting there at the board with Rodney, just like, oh my God, like the chef is hearing my rap. Like, this is crazy. So when my verse came on, everybody in the studio was like this. And then I just remember Raekwon, because everybody was looking at me like, yeah, Mike, shrugging me on the shoulder and stuff like that. Like, you out of here. And Raekwon was like, yo, that's you? And I was like, yeah, man. And he said, yo, something about the chopper to Chief Rocka. He was like, yo, that's crazy. I was like, yo, thank you, chef. So long story short, we finished the record. That comes out. And it was blazing all over the radio, Hot 97 and everything like that. And we get into it, but the situation just didn't turn out like I thought it was going to turn out, because I started doing other stuff too. I rapped on Immature. I don't know if y'all remember Immature. Yeah, Immature. Yeah. I rapped on their album called The Journey. I'm on track number 10. I Can't Wait. You know what I mean? I was writing a lot of raps for Rodney because he was good with the beats. I was bringing him samples and helping him out with the beats and everything. You know what I mean? So it was crazy. I rapped on Brownstone's album, just doing different remix. I did a track with Peter Gunn. Shout out to Peter Gunn's on Love and Hip Hop. Yeah. I remember me and him sitting in the studio. He like, yo, man, you unique, man. You gonna be crazy. I'm like, yeah. So, then just, it just started getting crazy because of, I guess I could say Rodney just became kind of selfish, you know what I mean? And things didn't go the way I planned it. So it didn't turn out the way I thought it was.
So what would you say your relationship with Rodney and Darkchild went wrong, in your opinion?
Well, what happened was, he was working on a compilation or whatever like that to try to get his label off the ground, Darkchild, because I was getting frustrated at the time because like we doing, like I said, I rapped on Immature's album. So I'm in there, Chris Stokes, shout out to Chris Stokes. I rapped on their album, Chris Stokes going crazy in the studio, like, yo, this little guy is crazy. So he pulls Rodney to the side, like, yo, I want to sign him. He had a label called TUG. And he was like, yo, I want to sign him. Rodney was like, nah, I'm saving him for my label. Puff Daddy, we go to Puff Daddy office. You know what I'm saying? Me, Rodney, his dad, Puff Daddy, like, yo, this little guy's hot. Rodney, like, nah, I'm saving him for my label, Darkchild. Rodney didn't have a label yet. He just had a production company. So I'm like, man, I come from the streets. I come from, the brotherhood or whatever like that. So I know about being loyal. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to be loyal to Rodney and wait for the Darkchild for him to get his label deal, whatever. Like, but it started becoming frustrating because it wasn't happening. You know what I mean? And it was kind of like other artists was coming in, and it just, I don't know, man. It just was kind of crazy. So after a while, you know what I mean? I'm writing all these songs, and then the money, like I wasn't getting paid what I was supposed to get paid. So I started having conversations with Rodney, like, man, you know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on? And he was like, oh, yeah, don't worry about it. My dad, this and this and this and this. So we kind of got into an argument or whatever like that. He started doing crazy stuff. And I think, I don't know, but I think it's because I was getting so much attention when I would be around him in the studio. Like, the record execs from the label and stuff was like, yo, what's up with this guy? And he kind of was like, nah, I'm saving him for my label. You know what I mean? So it came to the point where he started like keeping me out of the way or whatever like that. And it became to the point where it's like, man, I'm ready to do my thing or whatever. Like, when's this gonna happen or whatever? So to make a long story short, we started having disputes over some money. We got into an argument. And you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, man, but blah, 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 blah. He like, yeah, So I'm like, all right. So what happened was, like I said, I was doing mixtapes around this time. So I remember I left to go to New York City to rap on DJ K Slay. I rapped on his mixtape and DJ Chillwell from the East Side. I went up there to do those two mixtapes. And then I went up there and I stayed overnight. And when I came back in town, the girl I was with at the time, she was like, oh man, did you hear what happened? Because there wasn't no internet or Instagram and all that. So it was news didn't travel that fast. But the people that was, around knew what was going on. They was like, yeah, Rodney got robbed and somebody held him at gunpoint and this and this and this and this. And they saying you had it done. I guess it was because of the disagreement we had on the phone, the argument or whatever like that. So I'm like, damn, like, you know what I mean? So I try to call Rodney. He's not answering this and this and this. And I'm like, damn, what the hell is going on that fast? I go out of town to go to New York to rap on some mixtapes. I come back and everything is crazy. I can't get in touch with them now. What's going on? Next thing you know, I say like a week later, it pops up in the newspaper.
Yeah, AC,
you know what
AC
I mean?
Press.
And I got the newspaper article.
No doubt.
You know,
and for the people who don't know,
for
like
the
this
people that don't know, I don't know if you want to zoom in on it.
Yeah, we'll make sure we get the people in
This
there.
is real. And I'm going to leave a copy with the brothers or whatever, but it's time for the story to be told. You know what I mean?
Now, for the people who don't know, the Atlantic City Press at the time, there's no internet. So for South Jersey, Atlantic City Press is everything. That's the main paper out there.
It's the main paper in Atlantic City. You know what I mean? Front page news. They put me on the news, you know what I mean, in the newspaper saying I had this man robbed. I'm the leader of a gang from Stanley Holmes Village. I mean, it's in black and white right there. You know what I mean? So, man, this comes out in the newspaper. My grandma, like I said, she was living at the time. She's my best friend, my biggest fan, supporter of my music. She calls me crying. What is going on? They putting you in the newspaper like you some kind of monster and this and this and this. And after that, it was just all just crazy from there, man. You know what I mean? And I didn't know what was going on. You know what I mean? I never told nobody to go do nothing to Rodney Jerkins or anything like that. And I wanted to have a conversation with him. But after that, it was like, man, I couldn't even get in touch with him no more. It was like everything was just severed. You know what I mean? And then I'm starting to hear rumors. His dad, like, man, this guy will never work in this business again. They tried to harm my son, this and this and this. I'm like, damn, what is going on? So my life kind of went into shambles at this time. You know what I mean?
So for the people that don't know, 1998 with Rodney Jerkins, he was almost the hottest thing smoking. You got The Boy Is Mine, Brandy and Monica. You got Michael Jackson sitting around riding bikes in Pleasantville. Like, the shit was real out here in Jersey for Rodney Jerkins. So for that brother to say that you held him up at gunpoint or you had something to do with it.
Yeah, he didn't say me personally, but he's saying like I'm a gang leader and I had somebody do this to him.
Right, you called the shots and having that happen.
Yeah, man, that wasn't right, man, to put me in the newspaper as a gang leader. But, you know what I mean, no police ever came to talk to me or anything, you know what I mean? And one of my brothers did 10 years. Shout out to my brother Rashad Newsom. He did 10 years for something that he didn't even do. You know what I mean? He was accused of it. But back then, this guy, Rodney Jerkins, got millions of dollars. He's the hottest thing smoking. We didn't have a lot of money to get a good lawyer or none of this kind of stuff. So, you know, they railroaded my brother. And he wound up doing 10 years. You know what I mean? So it just was all crazy after that. And then with all that happening, I wasn't able to further myself in the music business, you know what I mean? Because people was hearing about this, you know what I mean? And thinking I'm some kind of bad guy or I'm some kind of monster or something like that, you know what I mean? And that wasn't the case, you know what I mean? And from that point on, it just been kind of like just crazy in the industry.
Your man did 10 years over that?
My man did 10 years. He's home now, you know what I mean? Actually, he just lost his mother like a couple months ago, man. She was like an aunt to me. Rest in peace to Aunt Doris, you know what I mean? But yeah, man, this guy Rodney Jerkins, man, he hurt a lot of people's lives, man. You know what I mean?
Is it fair to say that he blackballed your career?
Yeah, he definitely blackballed my career. That's very fair to say. You know what I mean? It's like to the point where, all right, I chalk that up as a loss or whatever like that. You know, my brother's in there doing time. I'm like, man, I got to keep going. You know, I'm young, I'm hungry. So I had a manager at the time or whatever. So we going around getting deals. I remember something heartbreaking. It was around like Thanksgiving, a little bit before Thanksgiving. My manager had set up a meeting with Warner Brothers. He had gave them my music or whatever, and they was really liking my stuff. And I had a meeting with Warner Brothers. I go to New York, had a meeting. They like, oh man, we're gonna do this. You know, we love it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna draw up the contracts or whatever like that. So they drawed up the contracts, and you know, they give me and my managers the contracts, but you know, you go through a negotiation stage. Just because they give you a contract, you don't sign it right there. You gotta go back and forth. It might take a month or two to everybody comes to an agreement. You know what I mean? So at this point, man, the contract is like we going back and forth or whatever like that. And then they was like, all right, after the holidays, we gonna ink the deal or whatever. So I remember I'm so excited going through all this turmoil. Them put me in a paper as the bad guy, the boogeyman and stuff like that. We was all at my dinner table. It was Thanksgiving. My mom, my aunt, my cousin Big Malik, Crazy Lot, my sister, my uncle Victor, everybody. We sitting around, and I was so proud to whip out the contracts and say, look, I'm about to sign on Warner Brother Records. I had the contracts, everything, you know what I mean? And they was like, yo, right after the holidays, we gonna sign. So Thanksgiving come, you know what I mean? Christmas come, New Year's come, when we go back to sign a contract, all of a sudden they just decided they're not going to do the deal no more. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's like, man, and that became like a normal thing. Every time I would get like close to something going on, it would mysteriously get shut down. But I always remember his dad telling people this guy would never work in the industry again. You know what I mean? And I was like, damn, that's, you know what I mean? That's not right. You know what I mean? So my brother did 10 years. They got my name all in the newspaper. This is just one copy, but they got my name in multiple papers as the trial's going on. Like, I'm just the biggest, baddest guy in the world. I'm just a demon. And no cops ever came to interview me, talk to me, nothing. I never been interrogated, questioned, or anything about it, but they got my name in there, slander. So I was like, what else can I do? So somebody was like suggested, man, maybe you should go talk to a lawyer or something. They slandering your name.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we went to go to a lawyer, but you know, this guy's multi-millionaire, you know, very powerful in the industry. So a lot of lawyers were even like, man, you know what I mean? I don't got no money like this at the time. So a lot of lawyers was like, man, like, there's nothing we can do. You know what I mean? Even though everything's right there for you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah. But they didn't even want to fight a guy that got this much power and money at the time. You know what I mean? So it kind of just left me out hanging to dry, kind of. You know what I mean?
Now you was telling us a story before we came into the studio to record about, you know, you humbled yourself down, you worked the job, and you seen one of his family members. Can you tell the people that story too?
Oh man, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So at this time, I'm going through a lot of stuff. They put me in the newspaper saying I'm this, I'm that, I'm a bad guy, I'm getting people robbed, I'm getting people killed, and all kinds of stuff, right? So my mom wound up having a nervous breakdown and goes in the hospital. You know what I mean? And I was heavy in the streets, and I went to go visit my mother in the hospital, and she was, you know, crying, hooked up to machines and everything. And she was just like, Michael, just this music thing it's not working for you. You know, they slandering your name and this and this and this. You in the streets or whatever. Why don't you just straighten up, baby, and just, you know, get some kind of trade into your belt. Why don't you go get a job and, you know what I mean? Just straighten up your act. So I'm like, damn, a job. Like, I just was on a big remix and I'm on Brownstone's album, I'm on Immature, this and this, but ties had got severed, so money had stopped flowing or whatever like that. So I'm like, damn, all right, so that's my mom. You know, I'm about to lose my mom. I told y'all my dad died when I was 2. So this is all I got left is my mom and my grandmom. So I'm like, man, that's my mom. All right, let me make her happy. Let me go out and get a job. So shout out to my boy Virgil Harper. He had got me a job. I was ready to do anything. I would have been whatever just to make my mother happy and show her, Mama, look, I'm not in the streets no more. I got a job.
Right.
You know, maybe that'll make her get better and get out the hospital. Right. So I went and got a job. My boy got me a job as a busboy at a restaurant called Sava Radio's. It was out in Linwood. It was a real high-end restaurant. Like, I'm talking about like real high-end rich people go there, right? So I'm in there. I don't really like the job, but you know, if this was going to take to make my mother happy, then this is what I'll do. So I'm in there one day, and I'm you know, sweating, busting my ass. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm busting my ass or whatever like that, and I'm in there busting tables, and who walks in? Rodney's brother, Rodney Jerkins. You know what I mean? And it was crazy. So I'm in there, and he looks at me, and he give me like a little smirk. They in there, you know, eating good. You know what I mean? Right. I'm busting tables. I'm like, damn, like, you know what I mean? Right. He ain't like I'm gonna run up and start doing something, but I'm just looking like, damn. And he looking at me like, ha ha ha, look where you at, look at us. So I'm like, damn, man, it is what it is. So I'm you know, I'm busting tables, whatever. My boy got me a job. I ain't trying to make him look bad or whatever. Right. Next thing you know, I get fired from the job. Damn. And then my boy come tell me, yo, I guess Rodney's brother Freddie knew maybe the owner of the restaurant or went and talked to somebody, whatever, and told them, yeah, you don't know who you got working for you. This guy's bad news or whatever like that. And I got fired from the job. So it was like, damn, no matter what I do, these people are trying to make my life hard for a situation I got blamed for that I didn't have nothing to do with. Like, man. So it was really trying times in my life, you know what I mean? So after I got fired, I mean, I got to eat. What I'm going to do? I go back to the streets, you know what I'm saying? Not nothing that I'm proud of, but
Right.
that's what I had to do.
It was what it was at that time.
Yeah.
What happened with you and Genuine?
Genuine? Oh, man, that's another thing, man. I was signed to Genuine. Because even though the thing with Rodney, I would still be pushing so hard that sometimes I would be able to slip through the cracks and maybe get certain things done. So shout out to my boy Raul Santiago. You know what I mean? He's a producer. He produced for Nas. He produced for a lot of people, Little Zane or whatever. He was doing his thing at the time, Tragedy Gaddafi, and he was a good friend of mine and kind of like a mentor. And he knew that I was innocent. You know what I mean? So he had a connection with Genuine. So he was like, man, you out here getting in trouble, man. Listen, pack your bags. Tomorrow morning, I'm coming to pick you up, and I'm taking you to D.C. I told Genuine and them about you. Genuine wanted to start making beats. I'm a master at the MPC 2000. So he was like, Genuine got a little studio in his house he just built. He got the drum machine. I told him about you and everything like that. So I'm going to take you up there to meet him. So, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, shit, I ain't doing nothing around here but getting in trouble. So I packed my bags and shout out to Raul Santiago, man. They came and picked me up in the morning, took me to Genuine's house, man. Genuine took a liking to me, and I wound up, you know, he let me stay there. He knew about the trouble and stuff I was getting into, and he let me live in his house.